The jungle floor of Guadalcanal never dried. Not in November of 1942. Mud sucked at every boot. Rotting vegetation filled the air with a sweetness that masked the smell of cordite and the copper tang of blood. For the men of the 1st Marine Division, each morning brought the same grim routine. Check your weapon, count your rounds, and wonder if today would be the day a Japanese sniper's bullet found you from a treetop you never thought to scan. But something changed along the Matanikau River in those desperate weeks. Something that started with a laugh and ended with a legend. This is the story of a scout sniper who brought his own rifle to a war, of a weapon the other Marines mocked, until the body count proved them wrong, when Marines mocked his personal. Springfield, until one scout killed 11 Japanese snipers in 4 days. Welcome back to WP Records. Today we uncover a forgotten chapter from the Guadalcanal campaign, a story of marksmanship, defiance, and a civilian rifle that became the most feared weapon on the island. To understand what happened in those 4 days, we first need to understand the hell these men were fighting in. By November 1942, the battle for Guadalcanal had already been raging for 3 months. What began as a relatively simple operation, seize the nearly complete Japanese airfield and hold it, had devolved into a nightmarish war of attrition. The island was a green hell. Dense jungle rose from black sand beaches. Mangrove swamps bred malaria by the millions. Rivers like the Matanikau and Tanaru cut deep ravines through the coral rock. Temperatures hovered near 100 degrees, with humidity that never dropped below 80%. Into this environment came the United States Marine Corps, specifically the 1st Marine Division. Among its regiments was the 5th Marines, and within that regiment, the Scout Sniper platoons. Now, the Marine Corps had only recently formalized its sniper program. Scout snipers were a new breed, elite marksmen who operated ahead of the main force, hunting enemy officers, observing troop movements, and eliminating high-value targets. The official sniper rifle at the time was the M1903A4 Springfield. It was a bolt-action .30-06 built on the venerable 1903 action, fitted with a 2.5x scope. By World War II standards, it was adequate. But adequate doesn't win wars. The problem was supply. The Marines simply didn't have enough sniper rifles. Official records show that the 1st Raider Battalion's 1942 table of equipment listed just 40 M1903 Springfield sniper rifles for the entire unit. 40 rifles. For an entire battalion. So Marines improvised. They always did. Some brought weapons from home. Others scrounged through rear echelon supply depots. A few wrote letters to family, asking them to mail hunting rifles. Which brings us to the hero of our story, a young corporal whose name history has largely forgotten, but whose actions on Guadalcanal deserve a place alongside the Corps' greatest marksmen. Corporal Herschel J. Ski Wilski, B Company, 1st Battalion, 8th Marines. He was a farm boy from Champaign, Illinois. Enlisted in June 1941, just months before Pearl Harbor. By November 1942, he was already a seasoned scout sniper, known for walking point on patrols and venturing miles ahead of the main body to gather intelligence. But there was something unusual about Corporal Wilski. Something that made the other Marines shake their heads and grin. He refused to carry the issued sniper rifle. The M1903A4 was a fine weapon. But Wilski had something better, or so he claimed. What he carried into the jungle was a personal hunting rifle, a Winchester Model 70 in .30-06. Now, the Model 70 had earned a nickname among American shooters, the rifleman's rifle. Introduced in 1936, it featured a controlled round feed action derived from the legendary Mauser 98. The trigger was crisp. The barrel was free-floated. The fit and finish were, by military standards, exquisite. But here's the thing that drew laughs from the other Marines. Wilski's Winchester was equipped with a scope he'd bought through a mail-order catalog. We don't know the exact make. Likely a Weaver or a Lyman Alaskan. Commercial glass meant for deer hunting, not combat. By military standards, it was absurd. The grunts called it his toy rifle. The snipers called it a liability. Imagine the scene in the days before landing. The men of B-18 are cleaning their weapons, checking zeros, telling stories to calm their nerves. Wilski pulls out his Winchester. You're bringing that into combat? Someone asks. Laughter ripples through the foxhole. A sergeant shakes his head. That scope won't last a day in the jungle. Fogg'll get it before the Japs do. Wilski just smiled, or so the accounts suggest, and kept cleaning his rifle. But here's what the mockers didn't understand. That mail-order scope had something the military-issue optics lacked. Clarity. The 2.5x and 3x scopes issued on the A4s had narrow fields of view and clouded easily in the humidity. Wilski's commercial glass, whatever it was, gave him a clearer picture at longer distances. And in the dense jungle canopy, where snipers hid in trees 200 yards away, that tiny advantage could mean the difference between life and death. The 5th Marines landed on Guadalcanal in August. Wilski's unit, the 8th Marines, arrived in November, just as the campaign entered its most brutal phase. By then, the Japanese had learned how to fight Marines. They stopped making frontal assaults across open ground after the Battle of the Tanaru, where Colonel Ichiki's regiment was annihilated. Instead, they adapted. Their new tactic was infiltration, small units slipping through the lines at night, snipers climbing into trees at dawn, artillery observers hiding in coconut groves. The Japanese sniper was a specially trained soldier. He could remain motionless in a treetop for 12 hours. He knew the jungle better than any Marine. His Arisaka Type 97 or Type 99 rifle, fitted with a 2x or 4x scope, was deadly accurate out to 500 meters, and he was everywhere. The weeks before Wilski's 4-day hunt had been a nightmare for the 8th Marines. Officers were dropping from single shots to the head. Machine gun positions were silenced by unseen enemies. Patrols would return with one less man, and no idea where the bullet came from. Morale was sinking. Men began flinching at every rustle of leaves. Some refused to look up, terrified of making eye contact. With a sniper peering down from above, the Marines needed someone who could fight the snipers. On their own terms, they needed a hunter who thought like the hunted. That's where Corporal Wilski came in. By mid-November, Wilski had already proven himself on patrol. He was the man they sent forward, sometimes miles ahead of the main body, to scout enemy positions. He moved like a ghost through the jungle. His fellow scouts, like Otto Lund, paired with him on reconnaissance missions deep behind Japanese lines. His record? By the time the 4-day hunt began, he'd already killed at least one Japanese officer and captured a blood-stained Colt pistol. But the sniper problem was getting worse, the Japanese high. Command had designated specific marksmen to target Marine officers and forward observers. They worked in teams, one shooter, one spotter, and changed positions after every shot. By the time a Marine patrol zeroed in on their location, they were already gone. The 8th Marines commander had a decision to make. He could wait for the enemy snipers to pick off his men one by one, or he could unleash his own hunter. Wilski was given a mission: find the Japanese snipers. Eliminate them. Do not take unnecessary risks. Do not compromise the mission. Simple orders. Impossible execution. What followed would become the stuff of Marine Corps legend, if anyone had bothered to write it down. Wilski didn't just hunt snipers. He hunted them on their own ground. He slipped through the Japanese perimeter, something few Marines dared attempt, and positioned himself where the enemy least expected him, behind their lines. The details are fragmentary, preserved only in a family tribute and a few scattered records. But the numbers are consistent: 11 Japanese snipers in 4 days, not 11 enemy soldiers. 11 snipers, each one a trained killer, equipped with a scoped rifle, hidden in the jungle canopy. And Wilski took them all without being touched. How? The answer lies in the weapon they mocked. We need to pause here and understand what Wilski was up against. The Japanese sniper of 1942 was not the desperate, poorly trained soldier of 1945. These were elite marksmen. Their Type 99 rifle could hold a 3-inch group at 300 meters. Their optics, while simple, were robust and well-suited to jungle conditions. They knew every trick. They would tie vines to their triggers so they could fire from a distance without exposing their position. They would smear mud on their faces and hands to break up their silhouette. They could hold a firing position for hours without moving a muscle. Most terrifying of all, they rarely shot at advancing troops. They waited. They let the patrol pass. Then they shot the man in the rear, the radio man. The officer, the medic, that's the kind of enemy Wilski faced, and his mail order rifle was about to be tested against the finest marksman the Japanese army could deploy. The 4-day hunt likely took place south of Point Cruz, near the Matanikau River, a region so contested that both sides held portions of it. The terrain was brutal, steep ravines choked with kunai grass, dense stands of jungle palm, and river crossings where visibility dropped to nearly zero. Every step was a potential death sentence. Wilski's method, as best we can reconstruct it, was simple in concept and suicidal in execution. He operated alone, or with just a single spotter, like Otto Lund. He moved at night, when the Japanese felt safest. He found high ground overlooking known sniper positions, and then he waited. Patience. That's the one word that appears in every account of the great snipers. Carlos Hathcock, Simo Hauha, Wasyl Zaitsev, and now, Herschel Wilski. He could wait for hours, days if necessary. He studied the jungle until he could spot a single broken branch, the sign of a sniper climbing into a tree. He tracked bird movements. The sudden silence of the jungle meant a predator was near, and when he saw his target, he didn't shoot immediately. He confirmed the kill zone. He checked his windage, though at jungle ranges. That was less a factor than the bullet-deflecting maze of leaves and branches. Then, one shot. The Winchester Model 70 had a reputation for accuracy that the M1903A4 couldn't match. The military rifles were mass-produced. The Winchester was hand-fitted. The trigger broke like glass. The bolt cycled like it was running on ball bearings. Combine that rifle with a clear commercial scope and a man who'd been shooting since he was old enough to hold a gun, and you had a weapon that could put a .30 Aero-6 bullet through a sniper's scope, if the shooter was good enough. Wilski was that good. By the end of the first day, he'd killed 3 Japanese snipers. Day 2 brought 2 more, and a close call when a Japanese patrol passed within 20 yards of his hide. Day 3 was the most productive. 4 snipers, each one eliminated from positions so far forward that Wilski could hear the enemy soldiers talking. Day 4, he finished the work. 2 more kills. Total, 11. But here's what makes this story truly remarkable. Wilski didn't just shoot snipers from a safe distance. He operated so deep behind enemy lines that he was essentially fighting a one-man war. In one engagement, he and Lund ambushed a Japanese officer and a private who were consulting a map on a trail below them, inside a deep ravine. The shot was awkward, complicated by the terrain and the jungle growth. Most snipers would have passed, waiting for a better opportunity. Not Wilski. His shot rang out first. The officer went down. Lund's shot came a heartbeat later, dropping the private. When they recovered the bodies, they found something remarkable. The officer's sidearm, a Colt Model 1903 pocket hammerless, had a bullet ricochet mark on the grip. Wilski's bullet had passed through the holster, damaged the pistol, and entered the officer's thigh, severing the femoral artery. That's marksmanship. That's precision under pressure, and the Winchester never failed him. Not once. By the 4th day, something had changed on the Matanikau front. Marines who patrolled the sector noticed that the sniper fire had stopped. No more single cracks from the treetops. No more officers dropping with neat holes in their foreheads. The jungle had gone quiet, the kind of quiet that precedes a storm. The Japanese knew something was wrong. Their forward observers reported that the American patrols were moving with confidence, no longer flinching at shadows. The snipers they'd positioned along the ridgeline simply vanished, one by one. Without a sound, what they didn't know was that a farm boy from Illinois had been hunting them in their own backyard, and he wasn't done. Wilski's 4-day hunt wasn't just about killing enemy marksmen. It was about gathering intelligence. Every sniper he eliminated carried maps, orders, and personal effects that told a story about Japanese troop movements. The documents he recovered from the officer near the Matanikau were particularly valuable. They revealed the locations of supply caches, artillery positions, and, most critically, the routes Japanese reinforcements used to move troops from the western end of the island to the front lines. That information saved Marine lives. Possibly hundreds of them. Now, we should address the elephant in the room. Why isn't Herschel Wilski a household name? The answer is complicated. The Marine Corps didn't widely publicize individual sniper kills during World War II, not the way they would in Vietnam or Iraq. The focus was on unit cohesion, on the team, on the Corps as a whole. Additionally, Wilski's war ended early. He contracted malaria and yellow jaundice, two of the Pacific Theater's most relentless killers, and was evacuated to New Zealand before the campaign finished. By the time he recovered, Guadalcanal was secured, and the spotlight had moved to other battles. But the men who served with him never forgot. Other Marines called him the fightingest Marine on Guadalcanal. One veteran put a hand on his son's shoulder years later and said simply, "Son, your dad was a very capable fighting man. Very. That's the quiet heroism that defines the greatest generation. Men who did extraordinary things and then went home to live ordinary lives." Wilski survived the war. He returned to Illinois, married a woman named Imogene, raised 2 children, and worked as a foreman for the University of Illinois physical plant. He attended Marine reunions until the year before his death, but he never sought recognition for what he'd done on Guadalcanal, the 11 snipers. The 4-day hunt? The Winchester they mocked? He carried those memories in silence. That's what makes this story so powerful. Not the glory, because there was no glory in that jungle. Only mud, blood, and the constant gnawing fear of death. But there was also duty, and skill, and a man who refused to let his comrades die when he had the tools and the talent to stop it. So what became of the mail-order rifle? Records don't say. Perhaps Wilski kept it, a reminder of the men he'd killed and the friends he'd lost. Perhaps he sold it, wanting nothing more than to forget. The answer died with him, but the rifle's legacy outlived its owner. The Winchester Model 70 went on to serve Marine snipers in Korea and, in limited numbers, in Vietnam. Its reputation as the rifleman's rifle was cemented not by hunting deer, but by hunting men who hunted Marines. And what of the 11 Japanese snipers Wilski killed? Each one was a soldier, following orders, fighting for his country. Their families likely never learned how they died, only that they fell on a distant island in a jungle that consumed everything it touched. War doesn't offer clean endings. It offers survival, and sometimes, if you're lucky, a chance to go home. The 4-day hunt along the Matanikau River didn't win the Battle of Guadalcanal, but it made the battle winnable. Every sniper Wilski eliminated was one less killer in the treetops. Every map he recovered gave intelligence that saved Marines. And every time a man from B-18 walked patrol without taking a bullet to the head, they had a farm boy with a mail-order scope to thank, Herschel J. Ski. Wilski died on a date the records don't specify, a quiet death for a quiet hero. He was buried in Illinois, far from the jungle that nearly killed him, far from the river where he became a legend. But his story lives on. In a blood-stained Colt pistol preserved by his family, in the memories of the men he saved, and here today on this channel. Because the forgotten stories of World War II deserve to be told, they mocked his rifle. They laughed at his scope. Then he killed 11 snipers in 4 days, and nobody laughed again. The jungles of Guadalcanal have long since grown over the foxholes and the fighting positions. The treetops where snipers once hid are silent now, but the courage of men like Corporal Herschel Wilski, men who carried personal weapons into a war because they trusted their skills more than bureaucracy, that courage endures. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to WWII Records as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.